Okay, this is Foundations in Algebra Review 1. So let's look at number 1. So number 1 says 6x times 4x cubed. Okay, well let's look for the like terms here, and we're supposed to just simplify. So our answer will have an x in it, that's fine. So first of all, I see these like terms 6 and 4. These are like terms because they're both just numbers. So 6 times 4, you can grab your calculator if you'd like, but it's going to be 24. And now the next question is, what is x times x cubed? So remember here, our whole job is to add the exponents. So this is just like an x to the first. So x to the first times x to the third. We have to add our exponents, so we get x to the fourth. All right, so our whole answer then is 24x to the fourth. Let's check the key on the bottom, and there you go, 24x to the fourth. Off to a good start. All right, look at number 2 for me. Number 2 says 2n squared over n. Okay, and remember, the other rule I want you to know here, the rule is that if we have one variable over the same variable with different powers, let me show you what I mean. For example, if I have let me do it over here. So if I have, for example, 5x to the third over x squared, that is x to the 3 minus 2. We just subtract our powers, which is just x, okay, because that's x to the first, and x to the first is just x. So this is the same idea. Here we have, so the 2, that's just going to hang out, nothing's going to change there. And now we have n squared over n to the first, so that's n to the 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 is just 1. So this is 2n to the first, or you can just say 2n. Okay, next is 16 to the 1/2. Your calculator can handle this, so you can always do it that way. You can do 16 to the power of 1 divide 2. And there it is, it's 4, that's the right answer. I want to make one more point about this though. The reason it's 4 is I want you to remember that a 1/2 power is the same thing as taking a square root. So that's really the reason. 1/2 power is the same as a square root, so the square root of 16, as we know, is just 4. Okay, good. Number 4 says, which function fits the data below? And this is a question like you would absolutely see on your graduation test. It's very similar. So what I want to do is I would like to test each answer with one of these points and see if it works. I'm going to choose my point kind of carefully here. I think I'm just going to test with, what do I want to test with here? I guess just 2. Yeah, 2 should be fine. So let's test with 2 here. So what I mean by test is I'm going to take answer choice A. A says negative root x plus 1. So for x, I'm going to plug in 2, because that's what it says for my x value. So I have negative square root of 2 plus 1. And if this is the right answer, I should get 0. All right, and looking at this, I can already tell this is not going to be 0. You can type it into your calculator, but that does not equal 0. So what that means is we can cross out A. I want to see you crossing out wrong answers all the time. It is a great way to increase your odds of getting a good score. The more bad answers you can eliminate, the better shape you're going to be in. Okay, answer choice B says the square root of x plus 1. Okay, so we're saying x is 2 in this case, so the square root of 2 plus 1. So does that equal 0? Question mark. It doesn't. That's not 0. You can type into your calculator, but again, that's not 0. Okay, what about this guy? Maybe we're getting a little warmer here. C says the square root of x minus 1 plus 1. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and write the number in there since we're trying 2. So I have 2 minus 1 plus 1. And notice that my square root ends right here. Some teachers will put a little one of those things to show you that your square root ends right there. Okay, so we know the square root ends right there. That's great. And now I'm going to go ahead and evaluate. So 2 minus 1 is just 1. So the square root of 1 is 1. Or I should say the square root of 1, and that's just 1. So we have 1 plus 1 equals 2. Okay, and we were shooting for 0, so not quite. This is not the right answer, but at least it gave us a nice whole number. So B is out, C is out. And now I'd like to try D. Okay, so D says Oh, I want to make a quick point though, actually. Let's say you're typing this into your calculator and you type in second square root 2 minus 1. Now here, it's really important that you end your square root. The way to end the square root on the calculator is to hit the right arrow key and see how my square root ends. Now I can do the other plus 1, because if you look at the problem carefully, you'll notice that that plus 1 is not inside the square root, so you have to be careful how you put it in the calculator. Okay, so now let's try D. So D says negative square root of x minus 1 plus 1. So let's plug in 2, so negative root 2 minus 1 plus 1. Okay, this is going to be 1, and the square root of 1 is just 1, so I have negative 1 plus 1 equals 0. Okay, there we go. Good. So D must be the right answer. Quick point. On your test, it might be the case that one of these values will work in more than one problem. If that happens, I want you to go ahead and eliminate the ones that it doesn't work in, and then if one of the values works in more than one answer, I want you to try another value, okay? So just try a different value, and the one for which all the values work has to be the right answer, and that will always work. Okay, our next problem is solving. Remember, I want you to solve these from the outside in, so I want you to start by subtracting 4 from both sides, minus 4 on both sides, okay? And I get 0 equals n over 5. Okay, and now I want to get n all by itself. The opposite of division is multiplication, so both sides times 5 times 5. These 5's cancel, and over here I get 0, because 5 times 0 is just 0, equals n, which is the right answer. Okay, next is number 6. 6 is a little bit tough. What's really important to realize here is that we have to distribute our minus sign, okay? So our minus sign has to end up here and here, okay? So let's try it. I have minus 2 is equal to negative x minus 4. So all I did there was I took that minus sign and I put it in front of both terms. Okay, so now that I've done that, my job now is to get x alone, just like it always is. That's always my job. So I want to work from the outside in. So the first thing I'll do is I'll add 4 to both sides. Plus 4, plus 4. Okay, so I get negative 2 plus 4 is 2 equals negative x. Now this step is tricky. We want to get x all alone, but we have this annoying minus sign. So what do we do about that minus sign? My hint is that this is like negative 1 times x. It's the same thing. Writing negative x is totally equivalent to writing negative 1 times x. Those are the same thing. So since this is multiplied by a negative 1, the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by negative 1. We're going to divide by negative 1. Over here they cancel, and I'm left with x equals 2 over negative 1 is negative 2. There you go. Alrighty, then my key right? Yeah, there it is. Cool. Okay, next on to functions. These can be a little tough. So this says, given f of x equals negative x plus 1, find f of 10. So when they say find f of 10, all they're really asking is they want you to plug in 10 wherever you see an x. So what I'm going to write here is I'm going to write f of 10 equals negative, and I see an x there, so I'm going to plug in a 10. Negative 10 plus 1. Okay, you can use your calculator if you want, but you should get negative 9. Okay, the next problem is very similar, but it's kind of the backwards version, and it's easy to make mistakes on. So here they give us a function, f of x equals negative 2x plus 1, and they give us this rule. They say f of x equals 13. Okay, so a lot of students want to plug in 13 for x, but that's not the right approach. What you're allowed to do is you're allowed to take the 13 and plug that in for f of x. Let me show you what I mean. So wherever I see an f of x in this formula, I'm going to write a 13. So I'll write 13 equals negative 2x plus 1. Okay? So notice I just took the original formula, and wherever I saw an f of x, I plugged in a 13. So now I'd like to get x by itself. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, so I get 12 is equal to negative 2x. Okay, Now I need to get rid of that 2, so I'm going to divide both sides by -2. Kind of running out of room here, but I'll get x equals 12 divide -2, which equals -6. All right, there you go. This one says, which of the following shows the solution of x squared minus 2x minus 3? Okay, so this has two things on the problem I want you to notice. The first one, the problem has an equation in it, right? There's an equation right here. That's number one. Number two, the answers are just numbers. So if your answers are just numbers and your problem has an equation, you can plug in the answers to see which one's right. So let's do it. The first answer says x is equal to -1. So to try that, I want to store -1 in my calculator as x. So I'll type -1. Actually, you can see that. I'll type -1 store x. Okay. And now I'm going to type in my equation. So I'll type in x squared. And so I'm basically testing my equation with this specific value of x. All right, so I have x squared minus 2x minus 3. I'll press enter, and there you go. I get 0. That's a good sign. So this works. Now, does that mean we're done? It doesn't, because we haven't checked both answers. But one thing I want to point out is that -1, I see it in A, I see it in B, I see it in C. I don't see it in D, so D must actually be wrong. Okay, so now I'm going to try the other answer, which is 1. So I'll say 1 store x. I'm storing 1 as x. And now, instead of typing the whole equation again, I can actually get it back by pressing the F button. I'm going to wait until my cursor is over. It's over the equation. I'll press enter to get it back and enter to use the function. And I get -4. Ooh, okay, so that's not 0. So A is gone. All right. I'm going to go ahead and hop to C. I'm going to use some of my math teacher intuition here and hop to C. So I'm going to plug in 3 store x. Okay. I'm going to get back my function, enter, and I get 0. Okay, so for C, both answers work. That's the right answer. All right, and that's plugging in the answer, a fantastic technique on any test, well, any multiple choice test, which are a lot of tests that you will take. Okay, last question. This is a transformation question. It says, as part of a project, Miss Chavez asked her class to graph y equals -x squared minus 8. How is the parent graph transformed? So first, my first question for you is, what is the parent graph? You have a formula sheet from me, or you should, and it has all 6 parent graphs I want you to know. And the parent graph here, as you should recognize, is y equals x squared. So the questions we have to answer is, what does the minus sign do? What does that minus sign do? And what does the -8 do? All right, let's do the minus sign first. This is a minus sign on the outside of the equation. So minus signs on the outside of our equation are going to reflect things across the x-axis. So you have to know that. So a minus sign outside the equation is going to reflect our graph across the x-axis. If you're confused by that, you can watch another video here, especially the ones on transformations, but that's the idea. So let's look at our answers, and anything that doesn't say x-axis, let's get rid of. So this says y-axis, so that's gone. And this says y-axis, so it's gone. Okay, so we're down to 2. That's great. We've killed some bad answers. And now, what does the -8 do? So notice that it's subtracted from the outside of the equation. It's not inside of there with the x, it's on the outside. So if we add or subtract on the outside, we're going to go up or down. And here it's a minus sign, so we must be going down. So the answer is A. It is a reflection over the x-axis and a shifting down of 8 units. All right, thank you.